with the new 2 Series, it grew in length by 4.3 inches, I believe it is. And you can see that the hood really sticks out here. Big news from BMW today. We have the brand new 2 Series that we're going to talk about today. And there is a lot to discuss with the brand new 2 Series. We're going to talk about some of the spec and tech. And of course, I'm going to share my opinion on this new design here from BMW. And then I'm going to tweak both the front and the rear and redesign them just a little bit. The second generation BMW 2 Series is here, and it's the rear-wheel drive 230i and the all-wheel drive M240i X-Drive models. Now the 230i uses a 255 horsepower 4-liter turbo engine, while the M240i is powered by a 382 horsepower turbocharged inline 6. They're set to go on sale here in the US this November, starting at about $37,000 for the 230i and about $49,000 to $50,000 for the M240i X-Drive. An all-wheel drive 230i X-Drive and a rear-wheel drive only M240i will arrive later. Now let's just jump in here directly and talk about the design. So this is kind of an interesting thing here that BMW did, because I feel like BMW is just throwing designs on the wall to just see what sticks, and then they experiment with a bunch of different kind of designs here, and I'm really glad that they did not put the BMW iX face onto the new 2 Series, because that would probably look a little weird. And I'm glad that they stuck with a more conservative approach for the 2 Series, because it's really a design or proportion package that I like. But now that I look at it with the iX face here, it kinda works. The new 2 Series to me doesn't look bad. There's just a lot going on, as it is with the 4 Series and the 3 Series as well. Mostly the 4 Series, where you have a lot going on in the front end, and then there's kind of a very subtle side view onto this, and more so the proportions of the new 2 Series is really where things get really interesting. So I want to show you just a side view here. We have the BMW M2, which is one of my favorite BMWs in recent times. It looks great, the proportions are on point, and it's just a pure driver's machine. You can get it with a manual, of course, as well. So let's have a look at this design here, and I want to show you a specific way that the new 2 Series looks a little off when it comes to the proportions. So when you sketch a sedan like this, you have a shoulder line, you have a base line, and then you have, of course, the greenhouse. So I want to show you quickly what I mean here. I'm going to sketch up a sedan and focus on the A-pillar and the positioning from the A-pillar in relation to the front wheel and the front axle. So you want to have the A-pillar extending, be almost a straight line going from the center of the front axle into the A-pillar, and then you go back and create the greenhouse. And as you can see here on the BMW M2, the previous generation 2 Series in general, I just took the M2 here because it looks great. That's how they created this design. So you have the center point of the axle right there, and then we just draw a straight line up, and you can see that this points right in to the front axle. Now, with the new 2 Series, it grew in length by 4.3 inches, I believe it is. And you can see that the hood really sticks out here, and it kind of looks a little off. And that has to do with the traditional way of designing a car. Yes, you can create a more raked window here, and I think that's kind of what they did to make it go into the front axle here as well. It looks like this portion of the car sticks out super long in relation to the rest of the car here. So what we could do here really quickly is just to take this, let's just cut it about right here, and then we move it to the right. So if we just move it in a couple of inches, something like this, you can see that it's starting to become a more normal looking when we're talking about the proportions of the car, in comparison to what we have here. So this is the original, and this is just a slight little tweak, a couple of inches moving, shortening the hood and the front area of the car, and I think that makes a huge difference. But at the same time, I've said it so many times before, you know, when you have something like this that sets the car apart, it kind of makes for a more interesting design, and I think it looks okay. It just looks a little weird. It definitely has the rear-wheel drive proportions, because you have all the mass in the back, and then you have the long hood sticking out from this mass, where you have, of course, the inline 6 or the turbo 4-cylinder. So let's have a look at the front view here. I'm going to redesign both the front and the rear. This is not a bad looking car. There's just a lot going on, and there's some confusion in the graphics here, at least for me. So if you look at this portion right here, you can see that there's a lot of tension in this surface area right here. There are a lot of lines just clashing into this, which creates a tension that doesn't feel like it's natural. It feels very unharmonious, if that's a word, and I kind of want to smooth this out and create some other design here. I think with the new 2 Series here, the M package look a little less attractive than the standard package that we have on the white car in this design right here. So what I want to do, you can see that this angle right here, it has a triangle down here. I'm not sure why, because it doesn't connect to any lines anywhere. If we just extend all these lines here, you can see that it doesn't go anywhere. It's just a triangle in the middle of the face of the car. And there's also a lot going on right here. It's very busy, a lot of lines sticking out. So I want to clean this up and maybe create a chamfer that goes from here in down here and then connects to this part right here. So we remove this upswing here and we delete that and create a beautiful chamfer going something like this. We can play around with that, and I'm not sure I like this chamfer right here, that the headlight sits inside of the car. It looks a little almost cheap, because there's no change in the depth here. It has the same depth. It looks like it just could be designed in a little smoother way. This part right here, if you look at the side view again, we can see that we have this line right here that is almost vertical. It's a new design for BMW. It just added a vertical line right there. Not sure why, but it adds to extending the front end even more when you have this separation here in the body of the car. It kind of pushes it separates the front end from the rest of the rear of the car. This is kind of busy for me with all these things in here, so I want to reduce the busyness in here. And if we look at the grille, the kidneys, thanks to BMW for taking their original style or their traditional style of kidneys and adding and grills and adding them onto the 2 Series. I like this approach. There's just this angle right here. I kind of want to straighten these up and have them be more parallel like that. Maybe do something with the chamfer over here. But then we have the headlight right here. I want to extend it because it looks like it's a little too short and they sit a little too far out. So I want to extend them and have them be connected with this top part of the grille right here, something like this. So we create this line in the LED will now be more like this, and then this line is going to connect to the rear end, this new piece that we create for the intake. So we have some line flow in the graphic features in the front of the car as well, and not just in the body lines. So having a look at the rear view, I think this is a decent, it's a good looking design. I think this just needs some tiny changes to this design to make it even more attractive. And those changes I'm going to show you just in a second here when we do the actual redesign. But I think I'm not a fan of parallel lines. So you see we have parallel lines in the graphics of the rear end here, and we have this black piece right here that doesn't seem like it's suiting, it doesn't fit the overall graphics within the taillight. It looks a lot better than the new X3, for example, which I'm not a fan of at all, where you have this going all the way like this and create something like that. But what I want to do here, very simple. I want to extend this, so I want to have this go further this way, so maybe have it end somewhere around here, create more of a width. I'm glad that BMW didn't follow the trend and created a LED light strip or light bar connecting the two, because they could have easily just followed all the trends that we have right now and connected it with a light bar, but it wouldn't feel BMW to me. So I'm glad they skipped that and stuck with what they usually do. But I want to work with the graphics here and maybe have it be connected something like this. I think this tiny change is going to make a big difference to this car. On top of that, this looks a little aftermarket-ish, so I think I'm going to want to reduce this plastic piece that goes up here, and instead we have this shape design be a part of be like an indent in the bumper itself, in the material or the metal of the car, instead of having it be part of the rear diffuser. I think that would look more classy and stuff like this. This is the M240i. It's not the M2, which will come later on. So I'm excited. I'm curious to see what they will do, how they will attack the new M2, and even add even more styling to an already, in my opinion, kind of overstyled front end. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they create and design the new package for the M2. But with that said, let's jump into the redesign. Talking about some of the performance of the new 2 Series. For example, the 230i will have a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine with 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. Not bad for a base model. And this will do 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds with a top speed that will be limited to either 130 miles per hour or 155 miles per hour, depending on what tires you have on the car. Now, the 240i X-Drive will use BMW's turbocharged 3-liter inline 6, and that puts out 382 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. And this will be connected with the all-wheel drive system, of course. The M240i will do 0 to 60 in just 4.1 seconds with an 8-speed automatic gearbox as standard, and it's the only option for both of these models. But if you think about the M240i doing 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds, then you can imagine what an insane beast of a machine hopefully the new M2 will be. And BMW has hinted that the new M2 might even have a manual transmission. That would be sweet if they really put a proper manual in the next M2 as well. On the inside, you have a touchscreen infotainment system, which is pretty standard these days, and you have an optional 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster. However, analog instruments will be standard, and all the US versions here for the 2 Series will come with sports seats and the leather steering wheel, and you have an optional glass moonroof for the M240i X-Drive that will be optional on the 230i. Now, the overall design here for the 2 Series, I'm really happy with this direction of the design of the BMW 2 Series in comparison to more recent designs. Even the 2 Series Grand Coupe, which they call it, which is a 4-door front engine 2 Series, you can see that the front end looks super heavy since it is a transverse engined car, and that just makes the whole dynamics and the proportions just look way off. And you can always tell when a car is designed to be front wheel drive. You can see it in the proportions, and that's what happened with the 2 Series Grand Coupe. And compared with the 2 Series here, the regular 2 Series, which is rear wheel drive, you can notice that the front end is a lot lower. You can push the A-pillar back, and you can have the mass of the car in the rear pushed further rear, which creates this rear wheel drive focused proportions and design. So I just quickly want to show you the changes here before and after, and just show you how tiny changes can make, in my opinion, a huge difference to a design. It doesn't have to be crazy. I always want to try and respect the designer's intent when it comes to the redesigns, and just have some tiny tweaks to the design to make it more in line with what I think the BMW brand stands for, and also the line flow of the car. So on top here we have the originals, and in the bottom we have my versions of them. So as you can see, I just wanted to extend the headlights here, make them a little wider, and I think that goes well, and it goes into the grill here right there, and also create this chamfer right here that creates almost like a twisted chamfer. As you can see, it twists right here and then goes into the light. And we also have this line going into the graphic in the bottom, which is lacking right here. You can see that this doesn't go anywhere, and then this just crashes right there. So it's like a clash of a lot of lines going on here. In the rear, I think this is the biggest change right here. You can see that just by adding some more width to the rear and to the taillight here, I think it just makes a big difference. And also removing this plastic piece right here that sticks out into the bumper, instead of that creating a similar shape but in the actual body of the car like that. And one more detail I just want to mention is I'm really glad that the BMW went back to the Hofmeister kink right here. This piece that lacks on that we don't have on the 4 Series. That's the thing with when you're trying to make something new. You don't have to stick to your old ways at all. No, there's a lot of ways you can experiment and have some fun with new design languages. But to me, that doesn't mean that you have to completely abandon your heritage and your design traditions, which I think BMW has done with a few models recently. But with the 2 Series, I think this is the direction that they want to go in. Experiment with, have some fun with some new graphics and also some new proportions here in the side view. But don't forget about your traditions and heritage.